Hello and welcome to the Pub Diary. I'm Roddy May, and this is a podcast for landlords, publicans, and anybody working in the hospitality sector. Each week, I'm going to open the book about what it's like to run a pub and hopefully talk to other like-minded people who are also in the same industry, other landlords, other restaurant owners, who can shed some insight into their experience of what it's like to run a pub, run a restaurant, and work in this environment, in this sector, which is currently incredibly tricky. So, how's the podcast going to work? Well, I've got a little structure that I've written down here. We're going to kind of split it up into 5 sections each week. And I do have a second microphone. So, hopefully, we will eventually, I'm going to show you the second microphone. Hopefully, we will eventually start getting some guests on that can come and share their experiences of what it's like. And we can talk about the industry as a whole. But first off, I thought, as it's the first episode, I'll give you an insight into what we're doing here, how we ended up running a pub, and how long we've been here, and kind of like a bit of an update of how it's going. So, this pub is the Russell Arms. It is in Butler's Cross, which is kind of in between Aylesbury and High Wycombe. It's just outside Wendover. It is the closest pub to Chequers, which is the Prime Minister's countryside estate. More on that a bit later or in another episode, because the Prime Minister has been here a couple of times, which we've had a fair bit of flack for. But let's not go into that today. Let's not get political on the first episode. So we took over this pub in March of 2024 with no experience of hospitality or working in this industry whatsoever. I took a hiatus from my job as a project manager for a signage company. I loved my job, but social media was taking over financially. So in October of 2023, I took a hiatus for 3 months and said, look, I'm going to give social media a go full time, see how we get on. Didn't like it after a week, knew I wanted to go back to my job. And then I saw an advert for the Russell Arms and I thought, ooh, that could be interesting. That could fit quite nicely into the content. I need to be busy. I need something else. I need some structure in my life because social media just wasn't doing that for me. So let's give it a go. So we applied. We went through a process where we had to do a business plan, several interviews, and the way this pub works, it's a community pub. So it's owned by about 60 shareholders, I think. But within those 60 shareholders, there are some board members, a board of directors. So that they ultimately had the decision who took on the pub. And through the interview process and through the business plan, they chose us. I was quite surprised, but obviously what we were bringing was completely different. You know, we were bringing a social media aspect to it, and my ideas for what I wanted to do with the pub were different to what they'd heard before. So I think they just fancied a change, and I'm very grateful that they took that risk and decided to go with us. So that was kind of it. So that was kind of December 2023. We found out that we were taking on the pub, and then it was kind of panic stations. It was like, shit, we really need to get on with this. We had no staff. We had no idea what we were doing. We had no idea how to decorate a pub. And we documented the whole thing on our TikTok. A lot of them are still on there. You can find them if you search up Russell Arms decorating. But I remember that day when we got the keys. It was kind of, I think it was February 2025. And we walked in, because bearing in mind, we'd only ever seen the pub at this point as a working pub with all the decorations in. And we walked in and it was empty. There was nothing on the shelves, nothing on the windowsills, nothing on the tables, nothing on the bar, no pumps, nothing. No glasses, and it was like, oh, that is an empty shell. And then you kind of appreciate where the little knickknacks come from and like how people dress a pub. Now, at this point, my wife, Mrs. May, again, you might know her from TikTok or from social media, she wanted to get a interior designer in, and I was fighting it. I was like, no, we can do that ourselves. But, I mean, oh my God. The best money we pretty much spent in the whole process was getting Kim. Sorry, Kim, I apologise if you're watching this because I cannot remember. Is it 15 the Furs, I think, is your company? That is terrible. I can't remember. But that's just me. You know I've got a terrible memory. And she came and she helped Kate through. I just might as well use my wife's real name. She helped Katie through the process of getting the stuff ready for the pub. Plants, cushions, knickknacks, books, shelves, things to go on the wall, and made the pub a pub. like made it look like a pub, and then all of a sudden, then suddenly it's suddenly coming together really quickly. We got pumps in, we got beers flowing, we got all the glasses behind the bar, we got the music working, we got the decorator came in, and we got some really funky wallpaper in the back room, in the toilets, and come March 2024 when we were ready for opening day. I mean, we weren't ready, but we had a lot of help along the way. We found a head chef. We had got a front of house manager. We had the staff ready to go, and we opened on the 8th of March for like a soft launch that weekend. So we did a Friday night service, a Saturday night service, and a Sunday roast. And a lot went wrong, again, which I will talk about later, because this is kind of supposed to be kind of like a quick introduction, but I will talk more about that opening weekend, because that is a whole podcast within itself, about the stuff that went on that night. But we opened, we got it done, and that was it. So March 24 we opened, and we're coming up to March 26. So we're coming up to our 2 year of being a open working pub. We're still here. My accountant assures we made money. I don't know where that money is, because it ain't in my account. But so we're obviously doing something right. We didn't make much, but we're still here. We're still going. We're still afloat, and it is tough, really tough. It's been incredibly hard work. Again, I will talk more about all of this kind of stuff. I mean, again, how much hard work goes into running a pub is a whole podcast within itself. But it's been great fun along the way. I've met some great people. A lot of the staff we had on that opening day, we still have here today, working today, which I think is a great testament to the place and how it's been. And that's kind of where we are. I'm sure there's going to be loads of questions, and this is great. But when this eventually goes live on YouTube or Spotify, wherever it's going to go, please ask as many questions as you possibly can, because that's what's going to feed the podcast in the weeks to come. So that's kind of like a brief introduction of how we took on the pub, where we are. I know that was kind of very, very kind of sketchy. There's loads more spaces to fill in, a lot more flesh to put on the bones, but ultimately, that is how we are here, where we're coming up to our 2 years. We've done 2 Christmases. So that's that. So now we're going to... So the next part of the podcast, I'm going to talk about the week that was. So I'm going to talk about last week, the state of where we are this year, kind of what we're building up to, and how we're getting on. So we were actually closed the first week of January. So our first day back was Friday the 9th, I believe, of January. So we were back open at 5 o'clock on Friday, and it was good. We had a nice full pub. Lots of locals came in to see us, which was great. We took some decent money for it. Bear in mind, we were just doing drinks, because the chefs were all in, but they were getting prepped for the Saturday. The biggest problem, well, actually, I'll talk about that afterwards in the next bit. So in terms of where we are in the state of the year, so we're back. We are building up to a menu change in February, which is going to be a whole shift in direction for the pub. There's going to be a whole new way that we do food, the way we serve food, which I will talk about in the coming weeks, because it's really exciting. I think there needs to be a shift in direction, certainly in this pub, of helping customers, trying to get customers back out, because not everyone wants to go and have a meal now and spend 20, 30 quid a head. You come out with your wife, your 2 kids, and you end up spending over 100, 120, 130 quid. It's a lot of money. It's a hell of a lot of money. And we feel like we need to find a way of people being able to come out for a glass of wine, have a couple of bits that will kind of fill them up, but won't break the bank, and also have loads and loads of choice. And that's kind of where we're going to go with the new menu. It's going to be a big, expansive menu, but with lots of options, smaller plates, bigger plates, varying prices, so you can kind of make it work for you. It's going to be a huge change that we need to work on staffing. We need to work on systems of how it's going to come out the kitchen, how we're going to put it into the kitchen. So there's so much work to do to get it right. And like we've always done through this near 2 years that we've been here, we've never rushed anything. We've never tried to do anything without the proper planning, because I've been to play, although I haven't got any experience of running a pub, I've got a lot of experience of going to restaurants, eating in restaurants. I know what I like. I know what service I don't like. I know what works. I know what doesn't work. And the worst thing I think you can do is rush something when you haven't put the proper planning and the proper thought into it, because all you're going to do is piss off customers. And once you piss off customers, you tend to not get a second chance. You're done. They'll just go somewhere else. They won't come back. So you've got to make sure that you're always going to get people that are going to moan about stuff. That is just hospitality. That is the way it is. But you've got to kind of find a way to make sure to minimise that, basically, to minimise pissing people off. Is the only really way I can put it. So there's a lot of menu planning going on at the moment. January's tough, really tough. So we have done some good email marketing to try and push our steak nights, which thankfully the bookings so far throughout January, we're full for every Thursday night, which is great. We do a fantastic steak night here. And to push the Sunday roast, because you've got to make the most of the days when your restaurant's full. And Thursdays and Sundays, we were full every day, pretty much every week last year. And hopefully in 2026 will be the same. If you can guarantee people through the door, you're doing something right. It also means when you've got people coming through the door, you've got to try and squeeze as much out of them as possible, but they don't feel like they're being squeezed. Does that make sense? When people are here, they're like gold dust. You've got to treat them like gold dust. You've also got to throw other stuff in front of their noses so they can see what else is going on here. So I'm now working to try and get marketing on tables. This is kind of stuff we have never done that we need to do. Get stuff on tables so when they're sat there, they see, oh, have you seen last Wednesday of every month they do a quiz night? Oh, have you seen this? They do, they've got a set menu during lunches. So all these kind of things that I've got to think about that I haven't really had time to think about, I've got to get cracking with. And I've been saying it for all last year. I said I was going to do this, and I didn't. And we just kind of trundled through last year, and we can't do that this year. This year we need to be on it, and that is kind of like, that's on me a lot, and with some help from other people. So we've got someone helping us with the marketing now, which has been great. So I tasked them with Sundays and Thursdays, and this week we want to hit up lunches. We want to try and get lunches busier. So we do a set menu lunch, 2 courses 19 quid, 3 courses 24 quid, which for the local area I think is really, really good value, but I'm not sure many people know about it. So for January, February, we're going to put in an offer where with the set menu you get a free medium glass of house, white, red or rosé, and then on Fridays we're doing fish and chips for 10 quid to try and kind of get some older generation in, because they love a bit of fish and chips. So that's kind of how we're going to try and coax some people in, try and get busier during lunchtimes in January. There's lots of different ways of trying to do this, and I'm sure everyone is in the same boat. Everyone's trying to get people through the door. But I mean, we're a 7-day operation. There's a lot of independent pubs aren't open Mondays and Tuesdays. We're 7 days. We've always been 7 days, which makes our life really difficult, because if you close Mondays and Tuesdays, it's easy. It's easy to give your full-time people the 2 days off that they need. So it costs a lot more money to be open 7 days a week, but it's something we are committed to, and we always have been open 7 days a week, and we will continue to do that, because we actually pick up business Mondays and Tuesdays due to other places being closed. So we will carry on doing that, and we will keep going. Valentine's menu is also something that our head chef Lee has got planned, so that's kind of been released this week as well. He will now move on to think about Mother's Day, Easter, then we will start thinking about summer bank holidays. I've got some live music booked in already for May. I've got 3 dates booked in. I need to get 3 more acts, because I want to have live music every week in May, June and July, and probably August actually. So that's something I need to work on this week as well. We are doing a darts marathon for Macmillan on January the 28th, which is going to be cool. It's going to go on all day. I think you've got to score 100,000 points or something. So we're going to set it up somewhere in the pub. We're going to try and get as many people in as possible. I'm trying to get some names in who can maybe come down, some special guests who can come down and play a couple of legs as well. So that's kind of what's going on at the pub. That's kind of what's going on in our mind at the moment that we're trying to organise and get working. So it's a never-ending process. You basically wish your life away in this industry. I'm sure many people feel the same. So you just kind of, you're almost living 3 months in advance of yourself, and then come August you've got to start thinking about Christmas. But I'm not there yet. I ain't going anywhere near Christmas yet. I can't start thinking about that. So that was the week. That's kind of like the week that was. That's where we're at. next I'm going to move on to the bit you don't see. So I'm going to give you an insight into something that's happened this week that you won't know about because it happened back there. The customers won't ever know about it, but it was nearly a complete disaster. So when we were closed, I decided to have the kitchen completely deep cleaned and the extraction completely deep cleaned. It needed doing. It was overdue. So I got a company in. They were absolutely fantastic. They came. They absolutely blitzed it. They turned up at 9:30 in the morning. They were still going at 10:30. They came back, finished it off the next day as well. But they basically took everything out of the kitchen, unplugged everything, unplugged the gas, unplugged the electric, took everything out into the wherever they needed to, cleaned it to within an inch of its life. They did a fantastic job. This is not a slight at them in any way whatsoever. They were fantastic. However, when you come to then plug everything back in, it's not always ideal. I remember when we took this place over, the previous tenant had unplugged everything and turned everything off, turned all the water off, or every little tap they could find, they turned off. And when we turned it all back on again, there was water pissing out everywhere. It was a bloody nightmare, and it took us about 3-4 months to get anywhere near to finding all of these leaks. So turning stuff off in a pub is not ideal. Unplugging stuff. So we plugged it all back in again, and there was no gas. There was no gas getting into the kitchen. The induction hob, which has 6 rings on it, only one of them was working, and all of the electrics were continually tripping. So we found this out quite late. So this is something I've learned, is if you're going to do a deep clean, do it on the Monday that you shut, not close to the day you open, because it doesn't give you a lot of time to react to anything. So we had this all happened on the Friday. We kind of discovered this. Saturday comes. I managed to get, well, with the help of one of the directors, we managed to get an electrician here on Friday night. He had to come back on Saturday to sort all the electrics. He did that on Saturday morning, but he didn't get that finished until about 12:30, at which point the first tables were starting to come in. So we had tables coming in for lunch with no gas, no electric, and one induction hob working. So that, because that side of the kitchen did have electric, but the other side didn't. Anyway, it's a complete bloody disaster. So eventually we got something working. I then found an emergency gas engineer who did commercial work. He lived very local to me. I phoned him up, and thankfully he came out. He came up here. He sorted out the issue for us. It was a little thing in the vent that where they'd jet washed it, they'd knocked it off or something like that. I can't remember. Basically, it needs to flow over it, otherwise it won't release the gas into the kitchen. Anyway, he got it sorted. So just before a table of 13 came in, we got the gas working again. So the guys in the kitchen did an amazing job. They sorted it out. They didn't moan. They didn't moan to me anyway. I'm sure they were moaning, and I bet there was a bit of moaning going on. But they were very good. They didn't vent on me. So we got it sorted, and I believe the induction hob has now been fixed as well. So we are kind of now back to where we were when we finished at the start of January, before we had our week off, and everything is now working, and the kitchen is incredibly clean, and we are kind of, we're starting off from a really good place for the new year. So that's kind of what I learned. I learnt to make sure if you're going to do maintenance like that, you you do it at the start when you close, not towards the end, because that was a complete disaster and very stressful as well. But that's kind of that's like, we had a gas leak in the cellar as well. That was the other thing that happened. The 70/30 gas started leaking, so that was another disaster that happened. So essentially, what was what time is it? Essentially, what was supposed to be kind of just a quick, well, not a quick, but a clean of the kitchen, which was expensive, and the event. I mean, that was all in all, I think it was about £2,000. Then cost me another 500 quid for the electrician, I think, and probably another 500 quid for the commercial guy. Oh, and then a call out for the induction as well. So I'm probably about £4,000 lighter on the back of the kitchen deep clean. But there you go. These things happen. I mean, like, other landlords will know there's never a cheap week, really. There's always something. There's always something in these pubs that goes wrong. But you've just kind of got to dust yourself down and crack on. And that's what I learned from this week. So I'm going to kind of start closing things out now, and kind of so that each week the final bit is kind of going to be like a closing time, final thought. Obviously, hopefully, I'll have someone with me at times as well, so we've kind of gone through this. But let's talk about hospitality and the government and kind of where we're going on this. Now, I'm no I'm no expert, so I haven't done an amazing amount of reading into this. So I'm not going to start spouting facts and spouting figures. I'm just going to kind of tell you how I feel and how I feel it affects me, and what changes I feel could be made to help us as a business. Because I've been on Instagram this morning, and the first three things I scrolled down were three good independent restaurants that serve their community closing their doors because they just can't afford to run anymore. And that is not right. That's businesses gone, chefs out of work, local community teenagers, pot washers, front of house staff that don't have jobs anymore. And it's awful. And people want to go and eat out, but they physically can't. I mean, I always judge it on a burger, right? Your burger price is kind of like, yeah, that's your sitting mark about where you are as a place. And I remember when we first opened, our burger was 18 quid, and people went mad at me. I was like getting the abuse and the messages I was getting about our burger. But where we sit as a place, there's a pub about a mile in that direction, pub in that direction, that are similar kind of offering to what we do. One of theirs is 19. In fact, both of their burgers are £19. So we went under. Our burger is handmade by our butchers. We went in, I think, or we certainly were in part of the process of choosing the meat that went into the burger. There's love goes into it, a lot of love. It's not just a burger with a bit of cheese slapped on the top. There's always a topping on it. It's a good burger. It's a really good burger. And should a burger be £18? No, of course it shouldn't. I mean, obviously not. But look at the price of a McDonald's burger now. McDonald's isn't cheap to go and eat out. And I'm not comparing our burger to a McDonald's burger. What I'm comparing is the price of a burger, how much a burger costs. Now, when you take our £18 burger, it's not an £18 burger, is it? There's the staff, there's the heating, there's the rates, there's the VAT, there's everything that goes into that £18 burger. How much are we actually making out of a burger? I don't know. Probably £1.50 if we're lucky. So, I mean, you've got to kind of... So how do you survive? I mean, you've got to sell a hell of a lot of burgers to make any kind of money. So that's like a pricing thing. I kind of went off on a bit of a burger tangent. But so the things I find unfair about the hospitality industry, the biggest thing I find unfair is VAT. VAT kills you. If you're, I honestly don't know how successful restaurants survive with their VAT bills. There is no VAT on any raw materials that come into our kitchen. So when I used to work in my signage job, it made sense. You bought in materials for a price that had VAT on them. You did what you needed to do to those materials, sold them to the customer with VAT on them, and then at the end of the month, the VAT that you charged your customer and the VAT you paid to your supplier offset each other. And if you've had a good month, you will have a good month. You'll have a VAT bill, of course, because you'll have charged more VAT than you'll have got in. But there's still that offset. In here, there is no offset. You just every meal we serve, we put 20% on to give to HMRC, and that's it. We don't get it back. You just have to give it. And people will say, well, VAT is you should be putting money aside. Yeah, of course you should. But it's so... I don't know how people don't understand that. It's just not fair. 20% VAT on our food is crazy. It should be 5%. I know it went down to 5% in COVID. It should never have come back up again. I don't get it. It's pretty much, as I understand it, it's pretty much the highest VAT rate on hospitality in Europe. I think Ireland... Sorry, iPhone storage problems in the middle of a rant. It just doesn't feel fair. VAT doesn't feel fair. It feels like a punishment, and it needs to be looked at. Business rates is something I need to look into more. I don't want to go on about that too much because I believe there is some relief coming. But if I look at my business rates, they've gone up, I think, £17,000 from last year. So if that stays as it is, we've just got to find 17,000 more pounds to pay our business rates. What is that all about? How does that make any sense? Why is it such a big leap? It doesn't make any sense. Everything's going up. Everything is going up, but we can't put our prices up. I mean, how do we put our prices up more without pissing people off? I just, I don't. We're here. Hospitality is what it is. You want people to come through the door. When people come through the door, you want them to be happy. You want them to give them a service. You can't. If we put our prices up anymore, then people would just stop coming, and then you're dead. You're finished, and that's. I don't know what the answer is. I don't know what the answer is, but pubs have to survive. Restaurants have to survive. Independent pubs and restaurants have to survive. Not just big companies that own these pubs and can have better buying power. Independent pubs have to survive. Community pubs have to survive. And I find it heartbreaking when I see these stories of places shutting down. Places that have been there for like 10, 15 years that have just had to give up because they probably weren't making much money anyway, but now they're losing money. And so it's just like, well, what's the point? And I just think that's awful. I think it's absolutely awful. I'd love to get a politician on to kind of like, because they could. I mean, I'm sure that just to get that. In fact, I might ask. I know the Bucks MP quite well. He's been in a few times. I'm sure he'd come on. Obviously, he would just be slagging Labour off, I suppose, because that's just their job. They can't agree with anything. But it'd be good to get like a point of view from a member of Parliament to see what do they feel. I don't understand. Like Keir Starmer, like I say, Keir Starmer's actually been in this pub, so he obviously likes pubs. So why does he not help in pubs? It's frustrating and it's hard. And at the moment we're okay, but I mean the money in the bank is a lot less at this point than it was this point last year, and I'm kind of already slightly concerned whether I'm going to have enough money in the bank at the end of January to pay the wages. And then when it becomes a point where I've got to start putting personal money in to prop up a business, that's when you start asking questions. Of course you do. Why wouldn't you? I mean, that's my money. That's my money. It's my kids. My personal money is the money for my. Everything is for the kids. It's like if I start giving that back, but then I feel I've got a massive. I feel a massive. I can't think of the word. I've got a lot of people working here who I want to keep working here. I want they kind of they don't rely on it. Obviously they can get work elsewhere, but I really want to make this place a success for them, and that's kind of on my mind as well. I mean, it's very difficult, but anyway, that's kind of my closing monologue, my final thought. I hope you've enjoyed the first episode of the podcast. Hopefully it'll be live on Spotify or wherever you can find it. I'd love to know your thoughts. Please leave a comment. Please leave any questions. If you want to come on the podcast and you work in hospitality or you're a publican or you're a landlord, please email me on at. I've only got my personal email at the moment. In fact, no, let's email pubdiary@gmail.com. I haven't made that email address yet, but it will be live by the time this goes out. Let's just hope it's available. Should be. If not, I'll change it and I'll put like a graphic on here of what the actual email address is. But like I say, hope you've enjoyed it. I'll be back next week. As long as someone watches it. As long as I get 2 viewers, then I'll be back next week. And hopefully then the week after that we can double it to 4. Let's go with that. So thanks very much. Take care. And I'll see you next time on the Pub Diary.